leadership, you have to get to a point where it is no longer about proving what you can do, but rather it's about proving what your team can do, what others can do as a result of your encouragement and support. And that's where I want to go with today's video. I'm leaning on an old metaphor I haven't used in ages, and that's the metaphor of the puzzle. Because you are an essential puzzle piece in this national reconciliation concept. But you have your own puzzle you're putting together. And every single time you add in new knowledge, new skills, you're building your wisdom, you're putting the puzzle together. And that's where confidence comes from. So because there's a whole bunch of you that are going to watch this video, I hope, and because you're all at different stages and maybe need different puzzle pieces or different guidance, today I want to touch on a whole bunch of things. My attempt not to prove what I know, but to help as many people as I can. So let's talk about it. Bonjour, Mishko Paganon, Quain Adishnakas Mungdo Dam. Hi, everybody. My name is Sandy Boucher. I'm Red Thunderbolt Woman of the Loon Clan, a proud member of Seine River First Nation in Treaty 3 territory in Northern Ontario. And as I mentioned in the opening, today I'm all over the map with a whole bunch of things. I have literally been all over the map. I just realized it's busy season for me, so a lot of traveling and a lot of different events, which is probably why this video is taking the form that it is. But I do hope, and I'd be interested in the end of this video, in the comments, please let me know which nugget of information was the puzzle piece you needed. Which one resonated with you, or which one did you really need to hear? Now, so I want to start off with actually a reference to last week's video where at the very end, and I'm hoping you watched it to the very end, I shared about my mom's story and how she had stayed home, that my grandfather didn't believe girls needed to be educated, that she didn't get sent to school until she was 14 and she was sent to kindergarten. Which meant, one, she was taller than her teacher, and two, imagine the little desks that kindergarten students sit in. She didn't fit in the desk. But what I have come to realize, and I choose my words carefully for this, my mom's oppression became my blessing. Because you see, for 14 years, my mom was not affected by a colonized education system. My mom was at home with her grandmother and her mom and her sisters and her aunts, hearing the stories, listening to an Indigenous worldview. And I honestly believe that is how she maintained that knowledge that was then passed on to me as we did the dishes together, knowledge that I now help to support you. So that is the beauty of continuing the healing journey, that maybe it's not in your lifetime where the biggest change happens, but don't ever forget that you're an essential puzzle piece. So that was the first point I wanted to make. I have a piece of paper here and it's got highlights and it's got post-its, notes, and the whole 9 yards. The second point, I think I'm getting a cold, so if I sound extra nasally today, I apologize for that. It might just be that I'm that busy. Maybe it's going to hit me. I'm not even going to think about it. Not even going to think about it. By the way, I'm going to have 8 different things I'm going to share with you today, so I thought that was kind of cute. We're going around the medicine wheel twice. So lots of info. Awareness. In my book, The Path, I talked about the 4 essential or sacred tools. Patience was the P. Path is an acronym. The P is for patience. Be patient with yourself and the people that you're working with. A is awareness, being aware of what's going on for other people. T is tenacity, don't give up. H is humility, always, always, always walk with humility. So, along the lines of the A, awareness, and this is specifically for non Indigenous people, helping you, and you should strive to be aware of what's going on for Indigenous people, what's going on in our world. And I'd be very interested to hear from the Indigenous people on this comment if you feel the same way. Um, Non Indigenous may or may not, but let's hold space for the Indigenous to comment. I can't help feeling, and I don't want to say it's an overwhelming feeling, but it's definitely a consistent one I haven't been able to shake. I can't help thinking that Indigenous communities and peoples have an incredibly large, bright target on our backs right now, even more so than usual. And that is because of all the political unrest right now. So I live in the province of Ontario, in Northern Ontario. Our Premier, Doug Ford, has promised, he just got reelected, and he has promised he is pushing the Ring of Fire through, basically to heck with what the First Nation communities need in that area. Remember what I talked about last week with land back, putting Indigenous needs on the back burner if Canada's needs always come first. So they don't care what they're going to do to Mother Earth. They don't care what kind of tailing ponds and disastrous reality is going to be left behind after they get the resources they need. They want to push this through. He said it's taken long enough. Anyone who's out there who has ever tried to reconcile with someone, it's not about how long it takes. It takes as long as it takes to reconcile and be heard and change actions and come up with a new path. You can't rush through it because then you're not reconciling anything. You're just making matters worse. You're adding fuel to the fire, and I am not talking the Ring of Fire in this case. So we got Doug Ford making that commitment. Then, of course, we're coming up on a federal election in a couple of weeks, and whether it's the Liberals with Premier or Prime Minister, I should say, Mark Carney, or Polyev with the head of the Conservatives, both of them are economy. We have to build the economy, which of course resonates with Canadians. No one likes the price of food right now, but again, that means jobs no matter what the price is. And from an Indigenous perspective, Anishinaabe perspective, I shouldn't lump us all together, we're always thinking of 7 generations ahead. It is not about a short-term job. What is the price our great-great-grandchildren are going to pay? Are we destroying Mother Earth, which we are just borrowing from our future generations? We're tasked with taking care of it for them, the unborn. What price are they going to pay for our short-term planning? So I hear economy above all else, and again, it's like they're going to run us over, literally, with their bulldozers. And of course, we got Trump to the south of us, and he wants us to be the 51st state. And in case you haven't figured out why yet, our resources and our fresh water. He wants the minerals, the essential minerals that his industries need, and he wants the fresh water. This is not because he cares 2 beans about us and what would happen to us and if that's a good idea for us. And by the way, if you find that treatment frustrating, that is exactly how we feel the federal government looks at us, or in Doug Ford's case, the provincial government. To heck with if it's good for us. They need it, and they're just going to bulldoze over us. So now you know exactly how we feel. I just can't help thinking that, again, Indigenous people are going to be that final line of defense to keep humans from destroying the very planet we need to live on with short-term thinking. And it's going to get ugly. We are going to get called names we've never even heard before, pushed out of the way. It's going to be ugly. So, if you're wondering what some Indigenous people like me are thinking, now you know. That was number 2. Number 3, now let's not get into a debate here. I don't know if you go on TikTok or not. I don't know if you enjoy TikTok or not. I do. I think the TikTok videos are hilarious. Again, it's your algorithm who you've chosen to follow. But I also follow this amazing individual called Riker. And I am not sure the pronouns, whether she goes by she or they go by they. So trying to be sensitive of gender identity here. But Riker had a quote that blew me away again through Indigenous eyes, from an Indigenous perspective. I was like, yes. Now everyone can comment on this one. I'd be willing to bet this is going to resonate with you, and let me know why. Like, are you marginalized? Are you female? That means you're marginalized. Here's the quote, and you tell me just how deeply this resonates with you. The quote is, "May you attract people who speak your language so you don't spend a lifetime translating your soul." That is my YouTube channel. That is my work, translating my soul. And it made me like it's back to back teaching, right? I'd spend all my time trying to get non-Indigenous people to see what I see, to see what we see as Indigenous people, to hear our concerns, to translate our worldview, to translate my soul. And it makes it really obvious why, in my downtime, it is so easy to hang out with other Indigenous who just get it. So, all of those people who judge people for wanting to hang out with their own, think of the newcomers. It's so you don't have to spend every waking minute translating your soul. I just had to share that. So that's 1, 2, 3. Number 4. Okay, so I mentioned the provincial election just happened in Ontario. Federal election is coming up in a couple weeks in Canada. A huge debate that you may or may not know, back to the awareness of the path again, that many, many, many Indigenous people debate whether to vote provincially, municipally, federally. I can honestly say for many years I didn't. I used to vote all the time, and then I totally stopped. I always voted municipally because that directly affected me. Provincially, I voted this last time because I tried my darndest to get Ford out of there. That didn't work. And I will most definitely be voting federally because I got to shut Polyev down. But I wanted to give you a little insight into why we wouldn't vote. And I can sum it up in one sentence: because none of the parties are Indigenous parties. As often as they love to say that we're going to fight for you, that you does not include Indigenous people. These are Canadian political parties or provincial political parties. They are not Indigenous political parties. So 99% of the time, what we are voting for is who we are going to negotiate with, the party that is going to sit across the table from us, because as is shown time and time again, these parties fight for what Canadians need, or people in Ontario need, or Manitoba, or whatever province. They are not fighting for what Indigenous need. That is our chiefs and our councils. So if ever you hear an Indigenous person say they're not voting, don't judge them for that. Understand where it comes from. Now, I am voting because federally, because I believe the Conservative Party, especially Polyev, one, Trump light, two, is going to be devastating to us. The other point I got to make, holy molies, do we become popular at election time? It is actually super annoying because whether it's usually the feds that do it, they understand the population, the political power we could have if we all chose to vote for a party. Um, so they make a lot of promises. They say things like, we're going to fight for you, which means they're lying to our face because they're going to fight. Well, there's a disclaimer. We will fight for what Indigenous people want as long as it's in line with what Canadians want. That's just the reality. So I hope that made sense. That's number 4 gone. Okay, so if we go back to the medicine wheel for a second, I think I probably touched on some baby, some youth. I helped you with your learning. This next one's an action. So this is adult stage. I hear it all the time, and I can honestly say I've done it. Where there is the Indigenous name, the Anishinaabe name, the Cree name, the Dene name, the Coast Salish name, the Haudenosaunee name, whatever language dialect we're talking about at the time, there's a name that is not in English, it's in one of the Indigenous languages, and the person, whoever come across this name or word, has to say it out loud, usually in front of public or another person at least. So they will say something along the lines of, I'm not even going to try to say that because I don't want to murder it. So, or something along that lines. They are trying to, they think they're being respectful. That if I mispronounce it, that would be disrespectful. You know what's disrespectful? Not trying. And like I said, I have done it. In that moment, you are putting your not wanting to be embarrassed over acknowledging the name of the person you're talking to or the entity you're working with. And considering Canadian history and how adamant Canada was at erasing us, that should never be an option. You know what? People are going to laugh. People are going to giggle. But they are all going to respect that you tried. And maybe they're even going to pronounce it for you so you can try again. So every single time you need to try. Remember from the land back information I gave you last time, assimilation is cultural genocide. Choosing to use an acronym, call us something else, not even try, is that assimilation. So try it. The song, is it Beyonce's song, Say My Name, Say My Name? I am not going to sing. I wouldn't do that to you. Try it. Do it. Google it to see if you can get the pronunciation. Ask someone. You will get better and better at it, like every new skill. But action stage, say my name, say my name, say the name every single time. Okay? Number 6. Aw. Okay, speaking of say my name, say my name. So I'm shooting this probably like a week before you see it, but I just got back from doing a youth event. And what I had written down is I noticed when I was reflecting back on the event that I speak so incredibly differently when I'm speaking from my heart and not my head. I was speaking to youth at an age and a stage where they may be starting to go down a very dark path. And I knew I had to reach them. And it was so important that I did. The stakes were so high, and it had nothing to do with applause or whether they liked me or the amount of money I was paid to be there. It was, can they hear me? Because they see adult, and adults don't usually hear them. So one of the first things, it was actually the very first thing I said to them, and I told them, if you forget absolutely everything else I say today, can you please hear this? There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. And I shared the back-to-back teaching with them. And I explained or shared with them how I know they have been absolutely frustrated talking to a parent or a teacher or a counselor or whoever, and that person was not able to see their point of view or didn't even try. And that doesn't mean what they see is wrong. And that doesn't mean what they feel is wrong. That means that other person has to get better at hearing. And just because someone else can't see their value, that other person's vision problem is not their value problem. That the fact that they're struggling in a mainstream school system doesn't mean that they won't be successful. That success does not have to be a mainstream definition. That we are past assimilation. And I talk to them about internalized oppression and the voice in their head that is constantly calling them down and how to shut that down. And I am thrilled to say the youth that were hiding their head down under their hood looked up and they asked questions and they said they loved what I had to share. And I honestly believe that I did reach them. And I think in the realm of reconciliation, in the realm of relationships, we got to get way better at speaking to hearts and from our hearts and not just to your head. I don't care if you're right, if the way you delivered it hurt someone. Relationships are emotional, and you have to consider the emotions. People love to stay, I know I meet so many academics that want to stay in the logic because they feel safer. Relationships are uncomfortable and challenging and involve a lot of apologies if you're actually getting real with someone. Like I said, get better at speaking to hearts, not heads. So as I mentioned in the beginning with the puzzle piece metaphor, which puzzle piece did you need that I shared today? Which one? And maybe it's this last one that I'm going to share with you. I have touched on it. I've shared in several videos that I have so much new stuff going on right now. One of them that I am absolutely excited about that just launched by the time you see this is my new onboarding program. So this is a program specifically for non-Indigenous people that are either A, just got hired by an Indigenous community, B, just got hired by an Indigenous entity, whether it's for-profit or not for-profit, or C, got hired by a non-Indigenous entity, but their job is to work with Indigenous people. That cross-cultural component is there. It's an onboarding program. It's like an hour and a half of videos and the matching manual that goes with it, the little workbook. It's made short and sweet, so it fits in as part of your onboarding program already, but it's going to stop you from making so many missteps. And if you're interested, then you need to email me directly because I would love to have that conversation with you. What is going to follow in a couple of seconds is an example. I'm going to share with you the very first video. There's a whole bunch of short and sweet little videos that make up this onboarding program, but I'm going to share the first one with you to give you a taste of what it's like. I would love to hear your opinion. I hope these puzzle pieces, at least one or two, fit into your puzzle. Please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and let me know what you think of the onboarding program. Until next week, I love you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Welcome to the Indigenous Engagement New Employee Onboarding Program. Before I say anything else, I want to say congratulations on your new job. I know that was probably stressful. You had to study and do the interview and all of that, but you did it. You got it. And now you're probably even more nervous because now you realize you're either working for an Indigenous employer, working in an Indigenous community, or tasked with working with an Indigenous community. And you probably know that there's some challenges involved with doing this work, but that's why I created this course. I got you. We're going to talk about all of those things. My name is Sandy Boucher. Mishko Paganonquay Nadishnakas Mungdo Dam. I'm Red Thunderbolt Woman of the Loon Clan, a proud member of Seine River First Nation in Treaty 3 territory in Northern Ontario, and I've been doing this work for 15 years. For 15 years, I've worked in Indigenous communities, helping them to heal and stand strong, and I've worked with people like you, working in a variety of municipalities or corporations, helping them to understand and respectfully work with Indigenous people. That's why I created this course for you. Now, this course is divided into 3 key parts that I think are absolutely essential for you to know. The first, how we got here and why it matters. Yes, we're going to touch on Canadian history, but no, it's not going to be 7 boring hours, just enough for you to understand what you're going to see every single day on the job. The second section, what you need to know to be successful in that job. And we're going to touch on a whole bunch of things in that section. There's 4 subsections. The first, working for an Indigenous employer and all the things you need to know about that. The next, working with an Indigenous employee, your co-workers. Next, working with an Indigenous community, the people you're probably going to be hired to serve. And last but not least, we have to touch on lateral violence because you are definitely going to encounter that in your work. The third section, what not to do. I get really blunt at the end, just giving you some solid information, the things you don't want to do. So let's get started.